live on Discord. So if people can just confirm that, that would be great. And then I can be happy that life is worth living again. Okay, yeah, we're definitely live on YouTube. Right, I think we're ready to go, guys. And only 2 minutes late. It's a miracle. It's a Christmas miracle.
Apparently, I'm not on YouTube. I don't know how that's happened.
No, you definitely are, Bazza. I can see you there on the stream.
Okay.
So yeah, you're there. Don't worry.
Ah, I see you've got a promotion, Barry.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, Menace in Chief. Okay. Oh, it's the old logo. Never mind. I won't worry about that. Hello and welcome to the PC Pro podcast. It is the 20th of February 2025. I'm Tim Danton, Editor-in-Chief of PC Pro. Who do I have with me today? I have got Mr. Barry Collins, who's dubbed himself Menace in Chief in the little the job title on this video stream. How are you, Menace?
Not too bad.
All right, okay. Don't give too much information.
Class to me yesterday.
Yeah. John Honeyball.
I think I should be a grumpy old person.
Well,
That'd be my new title.
You do it so well.
I do.
And here, live, after so many technical problems, I don't even want to go into them, Roche Nihuma, or Thuma.
Hi, General Mayhem. Yeah.
General
I wanted
Mayhem. Yeah.
Audio.
You can do Mayhem, Barry can do Menace. What are you going to be, John, if they've got Mayhem and Menace covered?
I don't know, because actually this all just froze for me very temporarily, so I'm just going to be grumpy old person.
Okay, well, clearly, I think what we need is a quantum computer to make this all work much more smoothly. Barry, has there been any news on that front?
Yeah, Microsoft has found one down the back of the sofa. This is called the Majorana 1 processor. You have to be very careful how you pronounce that. But this appears to be at least something of a breakthrough in quantum computing. Now, I'm going to preface this with the disclaimer that I am no quantum computing expert, so you're going to have to take some of this on trust. But what Microsoft claims to have invented is something called top conductors. So this is a new type of chip. Go on,
I think they're topo conductors, I believe.
You're right, topo conductors. See, I've gone wrong already. And basically, this is working with some are reporting this as a sort of new type of matter, but it's somewhere between a matter and a new state, from what I can understand. But where basically they are controlling a type of particle that can make qubits more stable. So the problem we've had so far with quantum computers which work on qubits is that the qubits are very unstable, so you need to produce lots of reserve qubits, if you like, to make sure you get a stable result.
For error correction.
For error correction, indeed. These claim to be, Microsoft claims the processor that it's created and this technique is much more stable, meaning you have to produce far less spare qubits to get the kind of results that you're hoping for. And so this is a completely new architecture that Microsoft has designed the hardware for, which is sort of interesting in itself. And they claim, obviously, this is the first step towards a very big breakthrough into quantum computing, which we seem to have been talking about for the past 20 years.
Yes, I mean, it's incredibly complicated. I do feel quite bad at making you our quantum correspondent. It's your fault, Barry, for suggesting the story, but you're absolutely right. It's a huge, monumental breakthrough. And I've been following quantum reasonably closely for the past 18 months. If I was IBM, for instance, I'd be absolutely quaking in my not even silicon boots, because this could upend all the research that they've done for the past 15 years and completely destroy their roadmap. So I'd love to actually know what they really think about this in IBM. But at the same time, we need to accept that, like all quantum breakthroughs, this one may not actually, we're still a very, very long way from actually achieving anything, because this is still just a prototype, isn't it, Barry, that they've made?
Yeah, I mean, they claim to have working silicon. They've got pictures of these chips Nadella's done interviews with, and it's about the size of the palm of his hand. So there is hardware made. This isn't a theoretical breakthrough, but we're obviously at the very beginning of producing hardware using this particular type of process. So yeah, very early days.
And I think the thing that they're promising so IBM's approach, for example, and I may be getting this slightly wrong, but IBM's approach is to actually join processors together. That's what their roadmap shows, and from that way, that's the way that they're scaling. And what Microsoft is saying is that with this one design, it's going to be able to scale up all the way up to 1 million qubits. And million is seen by many in the quantum computing field as being the breakthrough number at which you can create really meaningful quantum computers. So yeah, that is why it's considered to be actually really quite a big thing.
Just say so far they've got 8, so we're a long way from that kind of scale.
Okay, so what I suspect we're going to see is something very similar to what we saw at the start of computing, but not just computing actually. Just start talking about Moore's law, following the same kind of principle as Moore's law. So in the first 10 years, from that kind of 1960 to 1970 point, we saw a doubling of components that could be put onto anything, and we all know how powerful that cadence can be. 2 to the power of 10. That's quite a big number. So yes, it's only 8 now, but actually that does mean that within 10 years you could be getting up to very large numbers indeed, where it does become meaningful. And so if it does follow that pattern, actually this is still quite a big thing, even though, like you say, Barry, it is just 8. John, you surprised as the grumpy old man? Do you want to be cynical about this breakthrough?
Well, no, I've watched the video that Microsoft has put out, and it's they're as Barry says, they absolutely have got hardware here. This is not just some sort of white paper and a balloon. This is real stuff that they're working on. I believe it's coming out of their research place in Copenhagen, I read somewhere, and that they've been working on this for something like 17 years. So yes. This is not something that they've sort of dreamt up last week because of, DeepSeek or some new OpenAI engine kind of thing. This is something they've been really working on for a long time. And it looks like maybe they're actually going to do something here. They're claiming superconductor capabilities. They're claiming that they're working in units of half electrons, which kind of made my eyebrows raise a bit, just being my sort of nominally grumpy old man here. The idea of taking an electron and chopping half of it, that seems a bit spooky to me. And as you've both said, it's very much a case of this is incredibly bleeding edge engineering, and almost nobody understands it. Outside of the team that are working on it. The deliverables are going to be very interesting, and the one issue that we all keep raising is that if you really can do that kind of quantum computing, what does this do for cryptography? Is always the big worry at the back of this, and whether or not, if it can do it, that's one thing. If it can do it at scale for lots of people, that's quite a different thing in terms of breaking cryptography. So we just have to wait and see, basically, but certainly keeping an eye on it.
We do. Just to tackle your point about cryptography, it's well known in the cryptography field that they need to sort that out, and they are all working on the assumption that quantum will basically break all current cryptography. So what was it? God, it was 2 weeks ago, a week ago. HPE announced the first quantum resistant server. So that, or something like that. So these things are already out there. So yeah, and for example, the US government has already said that you can't buy equipment, kind of infrastructure equipment, unless it meets their quantum resistant specifications, and that's been around. These kind of details have been around for 15 years. So none of this is new. Everyone should be actually quite prepared for it. And I think what we should, if you can be the grumpy person, I'll be the optimist, John. and say, actually, we are looking forward to some interesting new things here. But at the same time, to take your point, what we need to make sure we do is to prepare for these quantum computers by tackling the problems before they happen, which is exactly what we did. And Barry wrote about this endlessly in the year 1999, exactly how we did for the Millennium Bug. We prepared for the problem because we knew it was coming. Same thing has to happen now for quantum computers. Roche, do you have any points of view that you wish to share on this particular topic?
I do, actually. Well, first of all, I feel really silly because when we did our podcast in the ship, I poo-pooed the idea of quantum for decades. And having read through the stuff earlier on today, and I know nothing, I'm convinced by two things. First, it's related to DARPA. And so as somebody who's looking for, credible, smart, trusted sources, if DARPA are in bed with Microsoft on this, then this thing has legs. And then the second thing that I really liked about it was that it gave a time frame of years, not decades, and no one's really been that bold. So the combination of and also, I mean, if this isn't the coolest story out there, I'm going to follow up with a sort of a tech scandal, but this is definitely the lead story, and it's just I just find it astonishing that we have people who are so smart that they go, you know what, the way we can solve this problem is let's just create something entirely new. I mean, it's absolutely, even though I understand none of it, I'm in awe of all of it. So that's my take on quantum. And I apologize, Tim, for poo-pooing the whole quantum journey. I stand corrected.
Yes, because that was my prediction, wasn't it? That in 10 years' time, we would actually...
You called it.
Yeah, but we're still a very, very long way away from this. And remember that many things are happening in parallel. So there's this work happening that Microsoft has been doing, and it has talked about it before, but this is the first time that it's actually produced something, like Barry said, that's actually physical and real. So this is a big moment. Sorry, John, it's you who said that, wasn't it? Anyway, but the point is that you've also got IBM doing stuff, you've got Google doing stuff, you've got others working in a completely different sphere, because this CPU, it's not a CPU, I don't know what to call it. This quantum chip only works at near to absolute zero. As do the computers that IBM is working on and Google is working on. But there are other fields as well where they're working on room temperature quantum computers. So we've got several things happening at once in this quite interesting and vibrant space. It feels to me that that's good to have all these different people working at it, all these different companies working at it, because what you'll have then, hopefully, at least one of those does become a commercial breakthrough. And just to be absolutely clear, I'm not suggesting that we're all going to have quantum computers in 20 years, because we're not. They are very specialist devices. We don't all have supercomputers. These should be thought of in the same way as supercomputers. They'll be rare, they'll be university-based, but they will also be doing amazing things. Do I sound a bit too excited? I look excited. Barry, who introduced this story, looks so grumpy. Like he really thinks this is the worst thing ever. Barry, do you think this is the worst thing ever?
No, I just want to see. We've talked about so many breakthroughs in quantum computing, and this does seem more significant than most, but let's see until it actually arrives before we start putting out the bunting, I'd say.
Yeah, and actually, thank you, Cole Tragraskis on Discord for pointing out that if we do follow the same line as Moore's law, then where we currently are, 8 qubits, according to this, it would take around 34 years until you got to 1 million qubits. So maybe we need to go a little bit faster than Moore's law. Although, having said that, sorry, just to be absolutely clear, Moore's first law actually was, and what I was referring to was a doubling every year. Moore's law then moved to every 21 months or so. He said 2 years, but actually moved to 21 months. for the next 20 odd years. So what I was talking about was the first 10 years of Moore's law. So you can cut that period in time in half. So rather than 34 years, it's 17 years to get to a million qubits. So let's be accurate with these extrapolations. And thank you, Ian Rutson. I'm not quite saying so. Ian Rutson on Discord has said, has quoted me as saying, "I think there's a world market for maybe 5 quantum computers." I'm not saying that, but I am saying we will not all be having a quantum computer sitting on our desk in 10 years' time, 20 years' time. All right. Does anybody want to say anything about this? Because I feel like I've monopolised this because I'm too excited about it. John, is there anything left that you wish to say?
It's it's the absolute classic, really long-term R&D project that these big indulge in because they've got the funding to do it and the people, and they can attract the right people to do this, and not actually have to deliver immediate shareholder value, but work in timescales that are often measured in decades. And there is quite a lot of this happening out there. I'll be coming back to one later on. And we should sell companies can do this kind of R&D work.
Yeah.
Isn't it a massive blow again, though, for Intel? Because if anybody needed a breakthrough like this to come out of the woodwork, it was Intel. And once again, you're seeing what seems to be a major chip development being done, not only by a rival as such, but a software company in the bulk of terms. So the fact that Microsoft has managed to do this kind of advanced hardware design, Intel must be. I would hate to be in their boardroom this morning because it must just be the most depressing place to be.
Although their share price has gone up quite recently. So who knows in this wild and wacky world in which we live. All right, thank you. I could easily talk about this for an hour, by the way. So it's best for me just to move away gently from this topic and instead move to the world of IT misspends with Urush.
Yeah, so this is actually quite brutal. So we've gone from the sort of the rarefied air of very smart people doing quantum, like having a vision, doing new stuff, to people who cannot follow a process. This is so depressing. And so I was in Ireland last week, and the country is sort of on fire, especially the cabinet is on fire because the Arts Council have misspent like €6.5 million, which might not sound like a lot of money, but I think that's more of a reflection of like how desensitized we are to these whopping great big losses. And so what the Arts Council had done, it is not clear, but they had paid a couple of companies to make something which isn't clear. They had, so what did they have? They didn't have a proper cost estimate for the job. They unauthorized funding was approved. They bust the budget. It was initially supposed to be 3 million. You're like, what were the Arts Council trying to make that could have gone north of 3 million? Like, you need a website, you need like a client management system, and then you need a way to determine whether or not you have the funding. Like, what were they making, this proprietary stuff? So anyway, so now in those instances of like financial malfeasance, the people who are in charge, so let's say that's the Irish government, have a range of options that are available to them. Number one, they could use Parliament as a platform for pantomime, where in a widow twanky kind of way, they grab their pearls and go, oh no, this is terrible, this is awful, what a waste. This money's been incinerated, it's a scandal. They could do that, which is the course of action that they chose. Or they could have had another option which is available to them, which is to get on the blower to the Attorney General, who gives legal advice, contact the Minister for Justice, who by the way is quite a smart solicitor over there, pull in the police, known in Ireland as the Gardaí, open an investigation, get in certified forensic examiners and financial analysts, find out who was supposed to be in charge of the project, what the milestones were, what the scope of the project was, how long it was supposed to take, who was supposed to be doing the sign-off, Was there more than 2 signatories? And we see this time and time again, where you have actually got you've got 2 scandals here. You have the first scandal, which is just money that has blown out the door, and they're like, oh, well, we don't know where it is. I know where it is. Show me the bank statements, right? Show me the bank statements and show me all the paperwork. I can figure this stuff out. And then what you have is like the reaction, which is like a windsock for telling you to what degree the people in charge are principled and honest actors in this. Because I'm looking at this, and the response by the government is unfathomable. They're making all the right noises, but what we need is, scrape this back and really not to tolerate it, and to find the people who are in charge, who are ultimately responsible for it. So, yeah, that's my...
That's your
the
take.
story I brought home. Yeah, I didn't bring you a stick of rock. I brought you back a scandal.
Well, that's very kind of you. It's 7. It sounds like a normal failed IT project to me in many ways. Why is it blown up to be such a big thing?
Because I think it's because it's 2025, and it's like, how does a website and some back end stuff that you could get off the shelf come to 3 million for the Arts Council, then go to 6.5 million, and then why were there no breaks? You've checks and balances. That project should have been divided into a couple of phases. Let's just say 5, keep the numbers kind of round. So 5 phases. Phase 1, we're going to deliver this. Then we're going, all right, great, you've done that, sign off. Now you get your money. And it's so easy, and this is so tried and tested, that the contrast to the stuff that the guys in the quantum space are doing, and then these guys can't just take charge of spending, which is well known and understood. Websites are well known and understood. How arts councils, like, what was the problem that they were trying to solve in the Arts Council? And I find the whole thing so opaque and astonishing and unfathomable. And I think that, look, I know we saw this here in this country during COVID, where you had overspends, but I think we need to start to be shocked by, they have nothing to show for it. They may as well have just handed over the money in the first place and got nothing and not wasted their time. They've nothing to show. So, yeah.
Barry, I know you've got views on this. What are your thoughts on this particular thing?
Well, it's hard to say because we don't know, but my gut instinct is this isn't an IT failure, it's a systems failure, it's a governance failure, and that has been going on forever and a day. And 7 million euros is 7 million euros, not to be brushed under the carpet, but compared to some of the IT overspends in this country, it is literally peanuts. I mean, we've seen billions spent on IT projects over here that have never materialised. So this kind of thing happens routinely. I'm absolutely not saying we should accept it, but it's process, not IT in itself, that is normally to blame.
John?
It's certainly not a failure of IT per se. It's a complete failure of the definition, the bidding process, and then the subsequent management and so forth. How was it Birmingham Council went from 2 pints of lager and a pack of crisps to 110 million to Oracle, I slightly exaggerate, but really only not very much. And the problem is that these local authorities, government departments, and so forth are not very good at doing this stuff. They're not good at defining the process of exactly what they want and nailing it down, for the very simple reason that they don't know either. So they talk to the experts, who then in this space are absolute masters of coming up with a contract that basically says, yes, we'll do this, but oh no, now you've decided you need this as well, or you need that as well, and you need that, and the cost balloons. That's exactly what happened with the Oracle system for Birmingham and other places as well, because this is their business model. these things operate. And you can say it's extraordinarily predatory of the companies like Oracle, the consultancies, but you also ought to counter that by the incompetence of the people who are trying to put together the system. Why is local authority services something that Birmingham needs to have done separately from Glasgow, separately from, I don't know what, Norwich or whoever?
And the people in the
IT system.
The people in those companies, as you know, who are in charge of those projects, it becomes cyclical because, like, to attract the right caliber of people to manage that kind of project, you need to pay serious money. If you're doing that kind of job in the private sector, you're earning a six-figure sum. If you pay that kind of sum in a local council, you can guarantee your local paper, the Daily Mail, whatever, will be writing huge stories, wondering why we're paying six-figure salaries to IT consultants in local councils and where's the money going. And this is where we get into these messes, because the people are not in those positions, are not qualified to do the job.
It's exactly like privatized services. It's like why the water companies are all failing, because there was some crazy idea that water was something that could be done at a regional and competitive level. Complete I deal with my local water company. There is no competition there. Why is provision of services, much needed, very important services, especially for those who are socially deprived or in difficulty or whatever, why is this different in one city to another? Why are they allowed to commission all of their own systems? Yeah, and you remember in my column some months ago, I was berating the fact that, yes, there can actually be gov.uk covering DVLA and everything to do with your cars, but, you know, paying for the toll to cross the Thames River at Dartford is an entirely different system to congestion charging for London. And of course, after this, I'm driving down to Bristol, so I've had to pay for that through the Bristol system. This is all nonsense.
Yes, don't get me started on Stansted fines. Roche, I think I think you've got something to say, and I think we should then use that to draw a line on this particular discussion and move along. So what is it you wish to add?
So my point was that, so I don't see this simply as an IT systems failure. I don't. I'm not going to blame the techies, but at some stage, the Arts Council must have spoken with techies who said, yes, we can do that, right? Whatever the vision was, that they said, yes, we can do that. And it is that is the central that's the starting point for trying to unpick what happened and why it went wrong. Because they must have made, during the procurement phase, they must have made the representation that this was something that they could deliver on, and that they would have also said that they could do it for 3 million. So there's a lot of questions to be asked. And honestly, I don't see the right questions being asked. I just see a lot of hot air and, you know, hyperbolic language coming from the cabinet. Well, you're in the right place for hyperbolic language. So the thing that immediately springs to mind, and maybe this is a feature we need to run, Barry, is IT projects actually went well. And see if we can find any. It feels like there should be some somewhere. John, the next item is with you, and because Apple has announced something new and shiny.
They have, and they've announced a new phone. Yay! It's called 16E, and basically it's the replacement for the old SE. So this is the base level model. It's the cheapy one, and of course with a price tag starting at £599, it's not exactly down there in the bargain basement bin, but it is their low-end phone. And it's the previous SE was, I think, based on the iPhone 6 or the iPhone 8 or something. So this is actually kind of based upon the iPhone 14 as a platform with changes. So it's got quite a lot of modern new stuff in it in terms of CPU, display capabilities and so forth. It's a single camera at the back, which is actually almost flush fitting, which is quite nice. And although it's a single camera, it is equivalent to the wide camera out of an iPhone 15 or 16. There are a few little issues here that people have been noticing. It doesn't have MagSafe, which I think is a bit of a disappointment. And it doesn't have the ultra wideband tracking or the radio to do thread. But for the intended customer base for this, I don't think that's a terribly big deal. It has gone to USB-C as you would expect, so the last of the Apple devices using Lightning has now gone. So why is this interesting? Well, of course, all of that is kind of like a great big yawn. It's a new cheap iPhone. You're either going to love it or
Not
not.
cheap, John.
Doesn't matter.
It's not cheap.
Well, no, I mean, sorry, cheap in the Apple range, yes.
Yes, okay.
150 quid on or 200 quid on a bottom end Samsung is better value for money. But if you want to be on the Apple platform on a new phone, the 16e is your starting point. All of that is all terribly interesting, kind of. But the really interesting bit is the modem. Now, some years ago, Apple bought Intel's 4G, 5G chip R&D. And they have been working on doing their own 5G radio for phones since then, or possibly even before then. And they have now cracked it to the extent that the 16e is the first product that ships with an Apple-designed 5G radio in it, not a Qualcomm part. And this is actually quite significant. Now, we know that the 60 selling huge numbers for Apple, so it's a fairly risk-free, low-risk entry for Apple at this point. I was actually reading some very interesting stuff because people are saying, well, how good is this new chipset compared to the Qualcomm? And in the very complicated world of radio standards, you tend to have one major player that bubbles up to the top. It's a bit like Intel Inside or those in the past, and Qualcomm have definitely been the go-to place for this stuff. Although bear in mind that a great deal of the IP for cellular technology is effectively open source, open licensing. So why is this interesting? Because I have read that the licensing cost, and I don't know if this is true, I haven't read the contract, but I have heard cost for Qualcomm for using their 4G or 5G chipset is proportional to the retail cost of the product that it's going into. And that's why Apple has never done 4G, 5G support within things like MacBooks and MacBook Pros and so forth, because those can run up into multiple thousands of pounds. And Apple having its own chipset, its own power management and integration into the SoC, or the moment it's called the C1 chip, but ultimately you would see Apple possibly integrating this into the SoC. It's a very interesting and very punchy move, but they're taking an early first step here.
So are you predicting a future where we do have broadband, for want of an easy word, built into the laptops that Apple is selling for a not a rip-off price as it currently is if you want to integrate LTE into, for example, one of the iPads?
Yeah, I could certainly see that, and certainly into laptops, because Apple won't have to pay itself a license for this. Of course, that won't stop Apple charging, but then that's the nature of the beast. But certainly, yes, I could certainly see this happening, and it is firing a shot across Qualcomm's bow, but it's a timely reminder that Apple likes to control its entire stack and do it in its own silicon if it possibly can.
Yeah, no, I hadn't actually realised their reliance upon Qualcomm, or indeed the state of the licensing costs. I'm surprised that they'd have
Well,
to
this
pay...
is as I have read. I mean, as I said, Tim,
Yeah.
Definitely true, but it is something that I have read and would make sense.
Yes, and it's the proportional cost that's weird, because the actual uplift of buying, for example, an iPad with with 4G as opposed to not 4G or 5G these days, it's only 200. So it's but that's only a small proportion of the actual cost of the device.
Yeah, and let's not forget that on an iPad when you go for the 4G or now 5G module, you actually do get a physical GPS receiver as well, which is not in the base product. Now, implementation-wise, given Apple's big support for eSIM, I could certainly see a future, MacBook Pro M5-based laptop having this just built in, and you just basically pay for your eSIM, and now you 4G, 5G connectivity on demand.
And your antenna and all the surrounding things as well, of course.
Well, you would just build that into the design of the device. You wouldn't do the aerials would be built in.
Does anybody actually want that these days, though? Because it's so easy to tether off your phone that even an additional cost of 40-50 quid would make me think, no thanks, there's not much point. Plus the
50 quid,
cost
what?
of the airtime. Well, if they produced a 5G version of the MacBook that was 50 quid extra, I couldn't see the point. I can't see the point in paying for an extra data connection because you can just tether it off your phone.
Okay, I see where you're coming from, except it's perfectly possible that the actual implementation cost for Apple to do this is pennies. But silicon.
Even if it was free,
and therefore, but if it was free, there's definitely cases here where you would want a work laptop to have a work SIM and not rely upon tethering to your own phone that you've got with you. There's a whole bunch of cases here where it would be a really good idea.
Okay.
I think also, so I think one of the problems we have at the moment is that the market is screwed. It very much in terms of from the point of view of the consumer. No, I'm using that word for whether you're a business buyer or a personal buyer. If you want to have extra data for your phone, to have it for your phone, your laptop, your tablet, you've got to go buy 3 lots.
Yeah,
it's just ridiculous. I'm already paying for far too many of my children's SIMs. Never mind having to buy yet more. So we need the market. Sorry, let me finish, John. Let me finish, John. But we need the market to shift, and so for the market to actually become personal, so that I have a SIM, because that should be reasonable to do now. I have a SIM. It follows me. Sometimes it's on my laptop. Sometimes it's on my watch. Sometimes it's on my tablet. But it follows me and it's tied to me. John.
But that's exactly how it works with Apple iWatch. You have a SIM, and the networks are now capable of handling 2 devices logged in simultaneously on the same phone number. Add a third to this, piece of cake. And also, please bear in mind that certainly for the business use case I was just describing, I'm paying whatever it is, £7.50 a month for a SIM with unlimited data on it and unlimited phone calls here in the UK. But you need to buy more than 10 of them and be a business. It's not expensive now. And if you were to have, as you say, if you were to have Apple become an MVNO and actually provide on the fly, on the demand eSIMs across all of your devices, then that really will shake up the market.
Yeah, and I think that is coming down the line. I think that's one of your predictions, John, that I think will happen. And I think, as you're right, in terms of the C1 is an indicator of it actually happening maybe sooner than we envisaged. Roche, sorry, do you want to kick in on this one?
Only to say, I love listening to Honeyball talking about Apple, because part of it is like the shipping forecast for me. I don't catch everything, but he really knows his Apple stuff, and so everything after broadband I followed.
Right.
That's
John,
all I have to say.
I'm sure that some people surely do probably fall asleep to this podcast. So some people during it whilst they're recording.
It's not in any way what I was inferring. It was just I recognize the words, but I just not in that order, and
John, if you can let us know how it's going down at Dogger Bank as well, that'd be very handy.
There's
I don't know about your Dogger Bank, but my Dogger Bank is just fine.
Oh God, there's a podcast that the BBC does where they talk about the tracks and the stories behind tracks. And unfortunately, I've forgotten its name. Maybe someone on Discord knows what I'm talking about and can remind me. But one of the ones they did was Sailing By. And that was quite an interesting story, so I recommend being after this one being inspired and going to listen to the story of that.
Song Exploder is the thing on BBC Radio 6. I think you're talking about.
No, it's not
Oh.
that. And Ian Rutson, no, it's not Inheritance Tracks. Oh, never mind. I'll scroll in a quiet moment and find out what it is. Anyway, let's move on to the next story, which is that HP has bought Humane AI, and in doing so, it's become very unusual. Not many people have bought much Human AI products. Do you remember the Human AI pin, Barry, from years old?
It's not years, about a year, isn't it? Came out again.
November 2023 was the time
Really?
they did that. Do you remember that slick video, which I always thought was a bit creepy, where there was just the two of them, who were the co-founders of the company, were standing in front of a table and talking very slowly and saying how the Humane IA pin would transform your life, and sticking it in their lapels and that kind of stuff. Anyway, that happened in November 2023. You could make pre-orders at that point for the price of $699, and very much tying with what we were just talking about, not just $699, you'd have to pay $24 per month for the T-Mobile subscription that would go into that, and also pay for the AI services that came with it. Now, all those people who pre-ordered would have to wait until April 2024 to receive their products, at which point you may recall the reviews were thunderously in favour of it and everyone loved it, or perhaps not, because, for example, the Verge came out with a deeply scathing review. One influencer described it as the worst product he'd ever reviewed, and basically people didn't like it because it was slow. The AI information, so one of the features it gave is you could ask it questions, what's showing at my local cinema, and it would come up with wrong answers, but it promised so much. It promised real-time translation. So in that slick demo video I told you about just then, they had this a Spanish talker coming up to one of the presenters, and they had this conversation, and he'd say something in Spanish, and then it would be translated, and then the other guy would respond, and blah blah blah. But it was all a bit, it worked in demo land, but it didn't seem to work particularly in the real world because it was just too darn slow. There are also problems with the laser display. Do you remember this? Barry, I'm going to use you as my foil for this. Do you remember that it had a laser display that went onto your hand? The green laser display? It had a green laser display that went onto your hand so that you could read your appointments, so what's coming up, what the time is, that kind of thing. Because one of their big ideas here is that it was going to replace your smartphone. So you didn't need to carry a smartphone with you. You could just look at your magical device and it could glow on that. Unfortunately, people did complain about the quality of the display as well. So anyway, no one liked it very much. And there were also problems with charging, and that came to a head in June when there is a problem with the fire safety. It was declared a fire safety risk, the charging case. In October, I believe it was, they had to recall all of the charging devices, and that was 10,500. That tells you exactly how many they sold as well. And that low sales figure, they were hoping to sell 100,000. They were selling around 10,000. And they were also getting terrible, terrible returns. So in the May to August period, apparently returns actually outnumbered sales. Not a good look for a company. Anyway, the long shot of this is that they dropped the price from $699 to $499 in October. And they had already been looking for buyers. At that point, how much do you think, Barry, they valued themselves at?
Oh, £4.50.
John, how much do you think we're going to go to you for a proper answer? What do you reckon? If you're this company, Silicon Valley company, you've got all this IP, what do you reckon you value yourself at?
95 billion.
It's not quite that bad. 750 million to 1 billion is what they're looking for. Anyway, surprise, surprise, they could not find a buyer. And the reason why we're talking about it right now is because this week HP and Humane AI announced that they had agreed a deal for $116 million. And that is roughly, or actually it's almost exactly half the amount that Humane AI had raised in funding across 3 funding rounds. So from this point of view, HP has got really quite a good deal, I would say, because although it's not interested in the hardware, it has got like 300 patents around this space, and it is going to turn all these engineers, etc., that it's acquired into a new division called HP IQ, a new innovation lab, and so that's going to happen. It's also bought an AI platform, Cosmos, it's called, in case you care. Now, the trouble is, and the big problem I have with this story, and Roche, I'll be very interested in your take on this as well, is that all the Humane AI pins that have been sold, and we're talking, like I say, about 10,500 roughly, it's in that kind of region, all of them will stop working on the 28th of February. So in a week's time, they will stop working. All those people, they've been paying all this money per month. They pay $699. They are going to, that investment is going to be worth absolutely zip come the end of this month. And it just makes me wonder, how on earth they can get away with this. Roche, so what do you think?
So you've given me a really naughty legal problem and like no time to look into it. But I'll say this, look, in all probability they're covered in the provisions within the license agreement that people would have accepted. I travel in tech circles and I have never seen anyone with this Humane AI pin. I've never seen it. And that's like the coolest thing in the world because it looks like, that's like the Star Trek
Yeah.
thing. So you definitely would notice it, and if somebody was just touching this instead of making a call, you'd be like, that's something that would stand out at a conference or a summit or something, and I just haven't seen it. So I suspect, in all probability, anyone who was an early purchaser, so the early adopters, is probably lying at the bottom of a drawer. And if it isn't, they won't, that there'll be no avenue or recourse for them because it'll be contained in dense, turgid legal prose if they had lawyers worth.
Let me ask you this though, Roche, because HP has acquired, I understand that HP is completely in the clear because all it has done is it's acquired the IP rights. It's not acquired anything else apart from that.
Yeah.
So, but it's going to, you could Humane AI technically is going to be switching off the servers, but you could also say surely HP could step in and keep them running.
I mean, maybe they looked at it and they just didn't want to, but when you do like sell a company, you can carve up so that you're only selling the 300 patents, and then you put to bed. That's the whole kind of the magic of limited liability, right? So that people who were involved in it don't have to then fork out, but actually, when the company dies, it's like a human dying. All of the problems that they had. So, if your granddad dies and he had a problem with his internet girlfriend, he dies and that problem dies with it. I know, I'm just trying to come up with see, this is it.
It's just very interesting where your mind goes, Roche. That's all I'll say.
Well, I didn't want to say anything that might reasonably be a problem. Many a shot at random sent hit where the marksman never meant, and then suddenly I'm in the middle of what does she know? Okay, so yeah, so when the person dies, the problems die with it, and so it is just a smart way of putting to bed a lot of the problems.
Yeah, and I suppose it does avoid the bad news a year later when they do eventually switch it off. Okay, right. I'm quite aware of the time. We could talk about this for ages. If Lee was here, he would be quite angry about the fact that all of these devices are basically going into landfill. They are completely useless. And by the way, all the ones that got returned by people that didn't work, they were completely useless as well because T-Mobile could not make them work with other people's setups. So that's great. Good planning there. Well done. But John, I feel like, do you want to say something very quickly about this, or shall I just move on to Nibs?
Pile of rubbish doomed to fail. I think they're lucky to get the money that they've got.
Okay, all right, Barry.
Because yeah, there's 300 patents, sure, patents for sure. But what are they actually worth?
Well, I was going to say in just a minute style. John had left you, Barry, with 30 seconds. If you wish to say anything.
Not really, except HP hasn't got a great history of integrating companies, so let's see how this one goes.
Yeah, let's not go there. All right, Barry, bring a little bit of lightness into this dark world.
So this is a bit of BBC research about dark mode, and they basically worked out that when people put their devices into dark mode, they end up turning up the brightness so much that the energy saving potentially gained by pushing the devices into dark mode are completely ameliorated by the fact that you're pushing up the brightness to read it. Now, I haven't been able to get the full research paper. The links don't work off the BBC site. But my quibble with the way they've done this study is that they basically gave people a tablet, put it in dark mode, and then said turn up the brightness to the point where you're comfortable reading it. So they were sort of artificially asking people to raise the brightness manually, whereas on most phones the brightness would be controlled automatically. So I've got a little doubt over the methodology they used, but it seems that dark mode may not be saving the energy you maybe hoped.
All right, thank you. I should say BBC did publish another piece of research this week about the fact you can't trust AI, but I think we all knew that already.
That was also very flawed, but yeah, let's move on.
Okay, all right. Right, I shall just briefly do a nib of my own, which is the fact that Dell has announced its first Dell Plus laptops. Who here in this podcast understands Dell's new branding for its laptops and its PCs and its monitors, etc.? Shakes of the head.
It's the Apple, isn't it? So Pro Max, isn't it? I think we're doing now.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, kind of. Okay, so you've got three tiers of you've got three categories. There's Dell, which is basic. You've got Dell Pro, which is their kind of aimed at SMB commercial, formerly Latitude-ish, some of the high-end XPSs, and you've got Dell Pro Max, which is the performance workstation kind of ones. So
that's what I just said. Where's my prize?
Shut up. So the plain Dell ones, they're kind of what used to be the Inspiron, and so now we're starting to get the first Dell Plus laptops. So you'll notice no Dell Pro Plus, just Dell Plus. So that's the the fact I've got to keep on trying to explain this even to myself shows that there is some room for confusion in this one. Anyway, the new Dell Plus laptops are here, equivalent to the Dell Inspiron Plus laptops, and the idea of these ones is they're slightly more luxurious, basically. So according to the chap who I watched talk about it, Kevin Terwilliger, who's the VP and General Manager of Dell's Product Management Group. Anyway, he did a pre-briefing and he talked all about it. He said we got the starting point, which is just Dell. Dell Plus is a step up, the more scalable performance. And you've got the ultimate in mobility and design, which will be Dell Premium, so Dell XPS as was. Anyway, the point is you can now buy in the UK Dell Plus laptops, the first ones, and it just gave me an opportunity to try and possibly explain that. Questions on a postcard are not at all welcome. Well, I know, do it. Send a postcard. Let's see what happens. All right, Roche, final nib.
Oh, okay. So.
Oh, sorry, hang on a sec. No, come on, Barry. That's too good a joke. You can't just put that joke on Discord.
You told me to shut up.
What's your joke?
No, you can't build up a joke like that. Just carry on. This is from one of our Discord contributors, Mr. Barry Collins, who says at the cheap low end, they've got the Dell Boy. All right, Roche, over to you.
Okay, this is the story that the president of Argentina hopped on Twitter, promoted Libra, which is a type of cryptocurrency. The crowd went wild, raised 100 million, following day deleted, crash. So there's a lot of brouhaha saying that he's committed fraud, and actually then even some commentators are calling it like a rug pull. It does look like a pump and dump. However, for that to be the case, he would need to be involved, and I don't know if he is involved or if he was just sort of a useful idiot. So actually it is just plain vanilla theft. If you take property dishonestly belonging to another with the intention to permanently deprive them, that is the very definition of theft. And even though Argentina has a different legal system to ours, it's likely that it's going to follow that. He could be done for fraud by misrepresentation, but he would have had to have known, and it would have had to have been dishonest. I think he's got an undergraduate could drive him safely through the gap that is in the system. However, there's two parts to it. There's the promotion part, and then there's the execution part. And those people, so the guys who were behind the actual cryptocurrency, because they raised like 100 million, it would be trivial for them to just hand back the cold hard cash. Those guys should be hanged by their thumbs from hooks. There you go. I said it here first.
All right, thank you very much. Now, John, I've been a bit cruel to you because I've not left you much time to talk about Hot Hard of the Week. I know this is something beloved to you. Oh, I should also say, for people who were hoping for Roche to be talking about, what was it, Roche, very briefly?
Oh, it's the encrypted client hello, to fix the TLS vulnerability or vulnerability in that. Yeah.
So Roche advertised that on LinkedIn and said we'd be talking about it, and then other things happened, as so often occurs. So our apologies, but you'll watch out for a future column where Roche will definitely be talking about that, because her deadline was yesterday and she's not submitted yet. Talking of people who haven't submitted their columns in time, here's John Honeyball.
Oh, bit bitchy. Goodness me, I feel slighted now. Never mind. Okay.
It's not a slight, is it, John? If it's 2 days after the deadline, it's just fact.
2 days, schmoo days. Who cares? So anyway, what are we talking about today? I'm posting the link now for our lovely Discord podsters. Okay. You know all about Unify. They do network switches, they do Wi-Fi, they do very good stuff, managed stuff. The core team of Unify or UI are actually ex-Apple people. They're the ones who did all the original Apple Wi-Fi work.
The company's actually called Ubiquity, isn't it, John?
Ubiquity or UI.com. So yes, I mean, choose your name. So basically, what have they come out with? Well, for a while, they've done these things called video recorders, which are basically large storage boxes for security camera recording. And what they've done is they have taken their mid-range one, which is a 7-bay rack-mountable box, and turned it into a NAS. So this is a straightforward 7-bay NAS. Start with a starting price, well, not a starting and an ending price, because there's only one of them, is £395 plus VAT, so 474 including VAT. So that's 7 bays with no drives. So why is this interesting? It is interesting because it has a 10 gig fiber or SFP port on it. It has a 1 gig backup port. You can put 2.5 and 3.5 inch hard disks into it. It has a really nice user interface. Before anybody asks, no, you do not need to have a Unify controller. You don't need to have any other Unify products on your network. It's just you could just go straight to its IP address and control it. If you do have Unify fabric control on your network, it will fully integrate into that. It is basically it's there to do SMB storage on your network. For file sharing. It has account management on it, so you set up accounts and home directories and login and permissions and access control lists and all of those grown-up things that you would expect. You can set it up as seven disks, or up to 7 disks. You don't have to put 7 in at once. And I bought this 395 quid plus VAT, and then I shoved into it 7 14 terabyte ironwolf Pro disks. Which took the total price up to something like 1,500 quid or something plus VAT. So what's the pros and cons of this? Well, the pros of this is it's a silly low price at 395 plus VAT, so 474 for a 7-bay NAS box. The performance is pretty damn good. And you can add more drives into it, so you can start small, add more drives, and it will auto grow. You can set it up as a straight RAID 5. You can set it up with 2 drives for error management. So because of that, that would cover you for the failure of 2 drives out of the array. Of course, you would then lose 2 drives worth of storage space. You can set up a hot swap drive as well. So it's pretty grown up. Downsides: it is not a Synology NAS comparable because it doesn't allow you to run a whole bunch of operating system type functionality that you can do on a Synology. This is a straight NAS. That's what it does. That's all it does. So you're not going to be starting to run little virtual machines and so on and so forth on this. It's a different type of creature. It is storage. So mine is set up, as I said, with 7 14 terabyte drives, which, hey, goodness me, I actually probably should have just logged into this. It's giving me, oh no, don't do that. It's giving me, I had this in a browser. Here we go. I've got 84 terabytes using 7 drives of 14 gig with obviously 1 used for parity.
So that's 84 terabytes of usable storage space.
84 terabytes of usable data. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is of course an awful lot of storage.
John, what are you going to use that for?
Well, I'm going to use it as a sort of an endpoint backup box, because all of our main storage is on Synologies. You've always got to be careful because drives and Synology boxes like that, they do age, and some of mine are now 5, 6, 7 years old. So I'm just thinking of placing put storage on a new box with new drives.
But John, you kind of said I'm going to use my storage for storage. What's actually going to be stored there? Is it so? It's going to be backups of PCs.
It's going to be backups of primary. It's backups of primary Synology servers. I'm not taking those away. That's not going to change. But the sort of the core storage that we have, and the core storage that we have on the network is being replicated onto this box now.
Right. So you see this as the market for this would be a small business looking to create a backup, a local backup.
Or a big lump of storage if they don't actually, if they've got a little sort of one of those terrible little network attached horrible boxes with a single drive in it stuffed in the corner, which is collecting dust. One of these would be an absolutely perfect upgrade. Now, if I was looking into my tea leaves, because this is based on the mid-sized video recorder box, they also have a 4-bay version of that and a 24-bay version of that product. So maybe in the near future there's going to be a 4-bay version and a 24-bay version of this product. I have to give you a caveat though. The software is still fairly early. It's rapidly improving here. I'm not putting it into a primary line of business application just yet. I would give it another 4 months or so for it finally to have stably settled down. It only shipped just before Christmas. So it is still early days for this platform, but they are iterating really fast on this. And it's not that it's been unstable, it's been perfectly fine. But there's a bit more functionality coming in the next version. So that will be a good thing.
Okay, let me fire a couple of questions from the from Discord. Running DAC, any option for M.2s?
No, there is no cache drives in it at the moment. There's no M.2 slots. It's possible in the next version of the OS for it that you'll be able to put a 2.5-inch SSDs in to a slot and then use that as cache. But no, it's not. This is not designed for super high-end, high-performance storage. This is designed as a bunch of storage on your network.
Wonderful. Does it have connection to Ubiquiti for management?
Yes. You can adopt it into your Ubiquiti fabric, and then it all just appears in one place. But you don't need to. You don't need to do that. If you don't want to, you can drive it entirely standalone.
Ian Nock has gone for a very simple approach to questions: SMB stroke CFS stroke NFS stroke iSCSI.
It is for certain. It is SMB because that's kind of its point. I'm sure it does. Control plane. I'm needing to go into the interface here. I think it does. I think it does NFS, but I'd have to check on that.
Okay.
But at the moment, think of it as an SMB store.
Okay. Does it have cloud integration? Comes from JJ.
What do you mean by cloud integration? I would ask the question. Oh, can you use it to back up to cloud storage and stuff like that?
Yeah, can you
integrated?
access it from remotely, I guess, as well?
Oh yeah, because you can through your Unify account you can get to it, so you can do
Yeah.
a cloud redirect, no problem.
Guessing it has the NVR client in it, says Downsea.
No, this is not an NVR recorder. This is an SMB NAS, so it's a different creature. In terms of cloud integration, I would say one thing it does that is really, really cute is if you want to share a file or a group of files with somebody, it is like one click in the management interface to say, take this file and make it available through a URL. You can even put a QR code on that with all the usual passwords and counts and stuff like that.
All right. Okay, thank you, John. Again, with 1 eye on the time, I'm going to say, Barry, please can you do the poll on Discord? And in the meantime, I'm going to ask Roche, is this hot, or is the Ubiquity, what's the name of it again, John? The Ubiquity.
It's called the
NAS Pro.
Unify NAS Pro. Yeah.
Unify NAS Pro. Is the Unify NAS Pro hot or not? Please, Roche. Oh, what was that?
Stunned into
Oh,
silence.
Hot,
Yeah.
hot. Okay.
Hot, yeah.
I think you may have nodded and I looked away, but so that's a hot. Barry?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you can really argue with the price, given the amount of storage on offer. Not for home users. Definitely looks like an absolute beast. But yeah, I think for a small office, it sounds pretty good.
Okay, I'm going to go hot as well, and exactly as Barry said, if you have the application for it, I think the price is right. John, hot or not?
I would say it's hot. I would also point out that because, as I said, because of it being the mid-range of their NVR being retargeted, if you were to look here at, here we go, camera security. I was just saying that the price of the four bay network video recorder is 239 plus VAT. Maybe they're going to do a version of that, which will be a little bit more domestic friendly.
All right. Okay, and I can say that we have a winner here of the hot vote. The Ubiquity NAS Pro is coming in 77% hot, 23% not, as I artificially close it at this point. So it is a win, a clean sweep. Thank you very much, everyone, for voting. That's going to be it because we have run over time. Until our next podcast in a week's time, it is goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Ruston, I have a keyboard on standby if it's called upon.
What is the keyboard? You want to show it?
Hang on.
Those are headphones, Barry.
Yeah, look. It's even got its own case. And it flips out. It's for use for your. It's like a take it with you kind of little keyboard for tablets or phones or.
Is that a cherry logo at the bottom?
It's not. Who is it? It's ProtoArch.
ProtoArch. Okay, Cole, are you being sarcastic or not when you say, "Oh, good, Barry," because I really miss keyboard reviews? That can be read.
It sounds sarcastic, if I'm being honest.
It does, doesn't it? I see. Okay. All right. Well, it is running a bit late. Everyone's hungry, I'm going to guess. Well, it might just be me.
Can
you
you remind me
later.
what I need to do? Do I just press the stop button?
Oh, let me just bring out the document. So this is, for anyone watching, of course, we don't have our regular guy known as Darian here, so we have to try and remember between us how it all works. Once you, when the podcast is over, everyone has said goodbye. We've done that.
Done it.
Okay, say goodbye to one another and the livenesses.
Hello,
then
goodbye.
finish by hitting end session for everyone in Riverside.
Well, there isn't
but
such
so-
a thing. There is a thing called stop, which I think is probably.
Okay, well that sounds very similar to me. So I think at that point we say goodbye to each other. We keep our windows open, and say goodbye to all the listeners.
Right.
Bye everyone.
Again. Bye.
Roche just went there, yeah.
Yes, let's hope.
Everyone seems to have uploaded. Okay, according to this.
Okay, including Roche.
It says successfully uploaded.
Fantastic. Okay, all right. Thanks, John. Your job is done. Mine
Bye.
begins.
Right. I
Thanks-
managed
thanks,
to drive
Basil.
to